Daniel Snyder, 2021 to 2023. For over 2 decades, Daniel Snyder ran the Washington Commanders like his personal kingdom. Behind the billion-dollar franchise and luxury suites, a U.S. House Oversight Committee was uncovering something far darker than anyone imagined. The investigation revealed that Snyder had created what they called a toxic workplace that lasted more than 20 years, with women bearing the brunt of the misconduct. The NFL's own independent investigation, led by attorney Mary Jo White, concluded that Snyder himself had sexually harassed a former cheerleader. But it didn't stop there. The report also found that the Commanders had systematically underreported revenues owed to other NFL clubs, essentially stealing from his fellow owners. When the evidence became undeniable, the league hit Snyder with a staggering $60 million fine as part of his exit deal. In July 2023, Snyder was effectively forced out of the NFL ownership club, selling the Commanders for a record-breaking $6.05 billion to Josh Harris's ownership group. It marked one of the most dramatic falls from grace in sports ownership history. The man who once seemed untouchable had become so toxic that even his billionaire peers wanted him gone. Jerry Jones, 2024 to 2025, Jerry Jones built the Dallas Cowboys into America's team and turned himself into one of the most recognizable figures in sports. But recent years have brought a storm of personal controversies that threaten to overshadow his 3 decades of success. A woman filed a federal lawsuit claiming Jones is her biological father, a claim he vehemently denied. That case ended in 2024 with a confidential settlement after Jones dropped his countersuit, but the damage to his reputation was done. Then came something even more serious, a separate sexual assault lawsuit that Jones denies, but which a Texas judge has scheduled for jury trial in 2026. The case will play out in public, potentially forcing the 82-year-old owner to defend himself in court. As if that weren't enough, in early 2025, the NFL fined Jones $250,000 after video appeared to show him giving an obscene gesture to fans. Jones claimed it was an accidental thumbs up, but the league didn't buy it. The multiple legal battles have created a cloud over Jones's legacy. While none of these allegations have been proven in court, the Cowboys owner, who once seemed larger than life now, faces questions about his conduct both on and off the field. The man who revolutionized NFL marketing may be remembered for very different reasons. Robert Kraft, 2019 to 2020. Robert Kraft was known as one of the NFL's most respected owners, having brought 6 Super Bowl championships to New England. Then came February 2019, when Florida authorities dropped a bombshell that would shake his reputation to its core. Kraft was charged with 2 misdemeanor counts of soliciting prostitution at a day spa in Jupiter, Florida, part of a broader sting operation that authorities initially described as targeting human trafficking. The story exploded across every news outlet in America. Security camera footage allegedly captured Kraft at the spa, and prosecutors seemed confident in their case. Kraft pleaded not guilty but issued a public apology, saying he was truly sorry for his actions. The case seemed destined for either a conviction or a humiliating plea deal. But then everything changed. Appellate courts ruled that the hidden cameras police had secretly installed violated the Fourth Amendment. Without that video evidence, prosecutors announced they were ethically compelled to drop all charges in September 2020. Kraft walked away without a criminal conviction, but the damage was permanent. The incident raised serious questions about the NFL's personal conduct policy and why Kraft faced no league discipline while players received suspensions for lesser offenses. Today, the Patriots owner remains in his position, but the scandal is permanently attached to his name. Stephen Ross, 2022. Stephen Ross spent years building the Miami Dolphins into a contender, but his impatience to win faster led him down a path that would result in unprecedented NFL discipline for an owner. The league's investigation uncovered that Ross and the Dolphins had illegally tampered with Tom Brady and head coach Sean Payton over multiple years, while both were under contract with other teams. The tampering wasn't casual, it was systematic and flagrant, involving secret meetings and negotiations that violated the most basic rules of competitive fairness. Then came an even more explosive allegation. Former head coach Brian Flores claimed Ross had offered him money to intentionally lose games in 2019 to secure better draft picks. While the NFL said it found no evidence of actual tanking, the accusation alone was devastating. In August 2022, the hammer dropped. Ross was suspended from all team activities through mid-October and fined $1.5 million personally. The Dolphins forfeited their 2023 first-round pick and their 2024 third-round pick. It was the harshest penalty ever levied against an NFL owner for competitive violations. Ross had tried to game the system to build a winner, and instead he'd mortgaged his team's future and humiliated himself in the process. Jim Irsay, 2014 to 2025. Jim Irsay inherited the Indianapolis Colts from his father and became known for his eccentricities and passion for rock and roll memorabilia. But behind the public persona was a man fighting a desperate battle with addiction. In March 2014, police pulled Irsay over and found him impaired, with multiple prescription medications and $29,000 in cash in his vehicle. He pleaded guilty to operating a vehicle while intoxicated, and the NFL suspended him for 6 games and fined him $500,000, the maximum penalty under the personal conduct policy for an owner. Irsay publicly committed to getting help and seemed to stabilize. But in August 2025, a Washington Post investigation revealed the devastating truth. Irsay had secretly relapsed into opioid addiction in his final years and had received risky high-dose opioid and ketamine treatments from doctors. The report detailed multiple overdoses before his death in May 2025 at age 66. The story raised troubling questions about how much the NFL knew about Irsay's condition and whether the league had turned a blind eye to an owner's addiction while continuing to punish players for substance abuse. Irsay's daughters have now taken over leadership of the Colts, but the tragedy of his final years serves as a stark reminder of addiction's power, even among the ultra-wealthy. Stan Kroenke, 2016 to 2021. Stan Kroenke is a billionaire's billionaire, married to a Walmart heiress and owning sports franchises around the world. But his decision to move the Rams from St. Louis to Los Angeles turned him into one of the most hated figures in sports. The city of St. Louis claimed Kroenke and the NFL had misled them, violating relocation guidelines after St. Louis had invested heavily in stadium upgrades. The lawsuit alleged that Kroenke had decided years earlier to move the team but kept lying to city officials and fans while secretly planning his Los Angeles palace. As the case headed toward trial in 2021, damaging internal emails and documents began surfacing, showing just how cynical the entire process had been. The NFL and Kroenke were facing the very real possibility of a jury trial in St. Louis enemy territory where damages could have reached into the billions. In November 2021, they blinked. The NFL and Rams settled for $790 million, one of the largest settlements in American sports history. Reports later revealed that Kroenke himself was forced to cover roughly $571 million of that total after a bitter dispute with fellow owners over who should pay. While Kroenke got his Los Angeles stadium and his team's value soared, he'll forever be remembered in St. Louis as the man who stole their team and then had to pay $750 million for the privilege. Dean Spanos, 2022 to present. Dean Spanos moved the Chargers from San Diego to Los Angeles, a decision that made him unpopular with fans. But that controversy pales compared to the family civil war that has exposed allegations of financial misconduct and misogyny. Spanos' own sister, Dea Spanos Barbarian, sued him in 2022, accusing him of misogynistic behavior, self-dealing, and repeated breaches of fiduciary duty as the controlling trustee of the family trust that owns the team. She asked a court to remove him from control entirely. The lawsuit painted a picture of a man who allegedly ran the trust like his personal piggy bank while excluding female family members from decision-making. Her sons later joined the legal fight, filing their own suit, claiming Dean had redirected money from the family trust for his personal purposes. The cases remain ongoing, with new filings and accusations emerging periodically. These aren't criminal matters, but civil disputes over money and control. Yet they've publicly exposed bitter divisions within the Spanos family and raised questions about how Dean runs both the trust and, by extension, the Chargers. For a franchise already struggling with fan support in Los Angeles, having their owner publicly accused of financial impropriety by his own family only deepens the dysfunction. David Tepper, 2024. David Tepper made billions as a hedge fund manager before buying the Carolina Panthers in 2018 for $2.3 billion. But his hot temper and impatient ownership style have made him one of the NFL's most controversial figures. In January 2024, during a humiliating 26-0 loss to the Jacksonville Jaguars, video captured Tepper throwing a drink toward Jaguars fans from his suite. The footage went viral, showing an NFL owner literally throwing a tantrum like a child. The league fined him $300,000 for unacceptable conduct, and Tepper issued an apology. But the incident was just the most visible example of Tepper's problematic behavior. He's cycled through head coaches at a dizzying rate, creating instability that has left the Panthers as one of the worst-run franchises in football. Beyond football operations, Tepper's business dealings have also drawn criticism. His planned team facility in Rock Hill, South Carolina, collapsed spectacularly, with a Tepper-controlled real estate company filing for bankruptcy protection and leaving the South Carolina city in financial chaos. Between the drink-throwing incident, the coaching carousel, and the Rock Hill disaster, Tepper has become a case study in how enormous wealth doesn't necessarily translate to good judgment or effective ownership. Mark Davis, 2022. Mark Davis inherited the Raiders from his legendary father Al Davis and successfully moved the team from Oakland to Las Vegas. But in 2022, allegations surfaced about workplace misconduct within the Raiders organization that raised serious questions about the culture he was allowing. Former team president Dan Ventrell claimed he was fired in retaliation for raising allegations of workplace misconduct to the NFL. Multiple former employees later came forward describing a hostile workplace culture, with complaints about how staff were treated and paid. The allegations suggested that while Davis was focused on the football side and his palatial new Las Vegas stadium, his front office had become a problematic environment for employees. Davis responded by conducting an internal investigation and hiring Sandra Douglas Morgan as the NFL's first black female team president, a move clearly designed to signal cultural change. The NFL never announced formal discipline, but the Raiders' front office came under intense scrutiny. For a franchise already dealing with on-field struggles and the aftermath of the John Gruden email scandal, the workplace allegations added another layer of dysfunction to an organization trying to establish itself in its new home. Jimmy Haslam, 2013 to 2018. Jimmy Haslam bought the Cleveland Browns in 2012, but his ownership has been forever shadowed by a massive fraud scandal at his family's truck stop empire, Pilot Flying J. In 2013, FBI and IRS agents raided Pilot Flying J headquarters as part of an investigation into a rebate fraud scheme where trucking customers were systematically shorted on promised fuel discounts. The scheme was elaborate and deliberate, with sales staff using code words and deliberately hiding the fraud from upper management, or so Haslam claimed. Over the next several years, at least 17 former Pilot employees pleaded guilty or were convicted. The company itself paid approximately $92 million in federal criminal penalties, plus additional civil settlements. Haslam consistently denied any knowledge of the fraudulent scheme and was never criminally charged. The statute of limitations eventually expired without federal prosecutors bringing charges against him personally. But the scandal raised an obvious question. How could the CEO and chairman not know about a systematic fraud happening at his own company? Critics argue that either Haslam knew and escaped prosecution, or he was so disconnected from his business that a massive criminal conspiracy operated under his nose for years. Neither explanation looks good. While the legal damage fell on the company and former executives, the Pilot Flying J fraud has become an indelible part of Haslam's story as Browns owner. Michael Bidwill, SA5, 2023 to 2025, SA5. Michael Bidwill has owned the Arizona Cardinals since his father's death in 2008, but recent years have brought mounting allegations of creating a toxic workplace culture fueled by his volatile personality. Former Cardinals executive Terry McDonough filed an arbitration complaint accusing Bidwill of workplace misconduct. Investigative reporting by ESPN and others painted a disturbing picture. Employees described Bidwill as miserable to people, with a fear-based culture where staff had to navigate unwritten rules around his moods. People reportedly lived in fear of accidentally triggering his anger. Then, in February 2025, Bidwill's former executive assistant filed a bombshell lawsuit alleging she was unmercifully harassed, almost daily, and emotionally abused. She claimed Bidwill pressured her to commit potentially illegal acts, including shipping a firearm via FedEx and falsifying travel documents, while also subjecting her to age and gender discrimination. The Cardinals have strongly denied these allegations, but they fit a pattern of accusations about Bidwill's management style and treatment of employees. The team has faced fines and penalties in connection with at least one prior matter related to the McDonough case, but Bidwill himself has not been suspended by the league. For a franchise trying to compete in the NFC West, the ongoing legal battles and workplace culture allegations have become a massive distraction. Woody Johnson, 2020 to 2021. Woody Johnson left the Jets in 2017 to serve as U.S. ambassador to the United Kingdom under President Trump. What should have been a prestigious diplomatic posting instead became mired in allegations of racism and sexism that followed him back to NFL ownership. In 2020, CNN and other outlets reported that Johnson was under investigation by the State Department's Inspector General for allegedly making racist and sexist comments to embassy staff. The reports were specific and damaging. Johnson allegedly questioned why Black History Month existed and made disparaging remarks about black men and women. There were also allegations that he tried to influence the location of the British Open golf tournament to benefit a Trump-owned resort, mixing personal business with diplomatic duties. Johnson denied making racist or sexist statements, but the Inspector General's report criticized aspects of his leadership and confirmed inappropriate or insensitive comments had been made. Despite the findings, Johnson remained ambassador until President Biden's inauguration in 2021, then returned to an active role running the Jets. The NFL never announced any discipline, For Jets fans, already frustrated with decades of losing, having an owner credibly accused of racism and investigated by government watchdogs only deepened the embarrassment of supporting a franchise that seems cursed at every level. So, which owner's controversy shocked you the most? From toxic workplaces to criminal investigations, from family civil wars to massive fraud schemes, these billionaires have proven that money can't buy character. Asterisk, asterisk. Drop a comment below with the owner you think got off too easy. And don't forget to subscribe for more deep dives into the stories the NFL doesn't want you to remember.